Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Big 12 Huddle. As always, here I'm your co-host, Calvin Alexander, host of the CGA Tour podcast, the College Huddle's premier Oklahoma State outlet and network here. Oh, of course, we're adding an extra adjective today, Roger, because we're fired up here. It's Wednesday night. But
Listen, fire off the superlatives because the offense is not firing at either of our schools right now. So let's do it.
Not at all. But I am joined here always by Night Bengal, the other co-host here of the Knighted Ones podcast, the UCF, of course, an aptly named Knighted Ones podcast here from the College Huddle Network as well, too. So with that being said, Roger, glad to see you're safe and all good after the storms this past weekend. The weekend before, of course, down in Florida area. Glad to see that you guys were able to play the game, but necessarily the game didn't go the way you would hope, of course, against Cincinnati. And I'm not trying to bring up bad things here, but I do want to talk about one game this past weekend, which is that OU Texas game. Do you think OU has any right to be kind of just confused that Texas was carrying around a Baker Mayfield jersey in one of their gym bags the whole weekend?
Totally confused, especially since they're so mad about the horns down. Remember last year at UCF, they were wanting to wanting the Big 12 to fine us for doing horns down, and yet they're carrying a jersey of a quarterback that hasn't played there in how many years, and dropping them in the middle of the field and stabbing the Texas flag through the center of it. I mean, how idiotic can you be if you're the school that doesn't want people to do the horns down? They got mad at the SEC and they got shut down real quick. And you're doing some antics like that. I mean, rent free. That's all I can say is Baker Mayfield is still living rent free in Texas's minds. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, talk about some pent up aggression. I mean, that is just, yeah, he won the Heisman. He's the last Heisman winner from OU. Actually, he's not even the last Heisman winner. Excuse me.
No, he's
Kyler
not.
Murray.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make sure I was, can't remember, but yeah, that is some weird energy that Texas has there, especially when it wasn't even OU who stabbed Texas's stuff. No matter what, it was Ohio State. So I don't get the whole deal. Texas, you look really soft in this moment. The other thing that looks really soft in this moment is the Big Ten and SEC alliance they're trying to put together and trying to weave the Big 12, the ACC, and every other college football school and university that kind of makes college football great out of the whole network, right? I mean, they're talking about a partnership deal here. It got nullified right now, but I'm sure it'll be brought back up here before we know it, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think what they're basically trying to do is take over the week 0 neutral site games to open up the season and collect all the cash from those, because those are big money makers for a variety of teams, right? So that's all this is really amounting to. I think that they know, as a conference, I think Greg Sankey's smart enough to know that if they cut off the rest of at least the power conference, because they did talk about doing a 70-team power conference during these meetings, that they know that if they cut them off, one, there's a lot of tax implications they want to deal with. Two, they're going to have to evenly revenue share, or more evenly revenue share than what they have under the current model. So that's not going anywhere. I think that's just how do we do a money grab from all of the possible opportunities as far as, the revenue that's out there and that's available. One of the last ways that they can monopolize that is getting all the feature neutral site games. So I think that's really what that was about.
Yeah, I do agree, of course. I mean, we saw the Georgia State games being played in the Mercedes-Benz, Dome. Within their next matchup, I forget exactly when that is, but it to me, college football, one of the best things about it is that you have so many teams every single week that you can just see some crazy stuff happen. Like, for example, Vanderbilt knocking off Alabama, and a transfer. One of the great things here that we've got going is we do have quarterbacks who can transfer from, I believe, New Mexico is where Pavia's from, and then transfers to Vanderbilt, gets a shot, and knocks it off, number 1, Alabama. So you just can see all these crazy things happen. Now, on the other side of it, we can see Ohio State play Oregon for the first time this year, before it maybe possibly definitely happens again in my mind here. For the Big Ten championship or in the college football playoffs or whatever it may be. There's like we'll see Alabama play Georgia again one more time here for sure too. But with all that being said, I just am all for all college football teams, 133 of them, making it to all be playing together here and not dividing it up any more than it already is, kind of between
Well,
conferences. Yeah,
I think there's definitely room for a new subdivision for the power schools. That 70 to 74 window. Now, if I was a UCF fan that was still in the AAC, I'd be screaming up and down and my pitchforks. But by and large, you've got most of the schools that can play at that level or support a program at that level within the power conferences now, right? SMU can pay at that level. That's why they're in. They didn't really get promoted. They bought their way in, right? But everybody else pretty much that can support that level of program, fan support, facilities, all of that stuff, they're in. So do I think there may be some, Memphis, kind of feel bad for them, Tulane, now that they've actually started having some success in football, I could see it. But again, they're a small school. They're like Miami. Are they going to be able to galvanize New Orleans? Probably not, right? That those days are long gone. So, outside of like maybe Memphis, Boise, obviously from a football perspective, belongs in that discussion as kind of a tweener. San Diego State maybe, but everybody else, you can pretty much cut it off. It's not the same level of commitment or anything else. I mean, look at the Cows. Do you really think that the Cows could perform at a Power 4 level?
no, I mean there's definitely plenty of schools like that. Like UAB is another one. University of South Alabama. I mean there's just other ones I keep going with here. I know I just went back to Alabama, but I guess what I worry more about is that, and we've just already seen this. What I worry more about is just like the continued path or continued trend here of just more and more dividing up amongst those who haves and haves nots. Because Oklahoma State just we have not been a have for a little bit now. Now I'm not saying we're doing bad or anything like that, but like you look at the NIL evaluations and like how Oklahoma State's doing NIL wise versus how other schools are doing. And like we're not too far off, but it's not proving to be the
Well,
best far.
I
So
think
I'm against all the segmentation of all of it.
Well, I think that segmentation though is based on the donor programs, right? So there's going to be segmentation no matter what. That's what consolidation is all about. For the Big 12, the key is the schools staying relevant, right? And we're at a little bit of a disadvantage because we beat each other up, which makes for a great conference and a great weekend of football watching, but doesn't help us in the grander scheme of things, right? But at the end of the day, the challenge is always going to be Texas always had more revenue than Iowa State did. Texas always had more revenue than just about everybody in the country, right? Because I think they were the number one revenue generating school in the entire country,
Yeah.
even in the Big 12 conference. So there's always going to be people that have more. The big key is playoff access, right? And as long as everybody has the same or a very similar amount of playoff spots, that's my only concern. But yeah, I'd be perfectly fine cutting it off at the current P4. But they'll never do that because then they'll have to negotiate differently when it comes to the conferences and quote unquote what they deserve, right? And right now they have an outsized seat at the table because of the contracts that they have with the TV providers. The playoff isn't even, it's an invitational. It's not an NCAA sanctioned championship. It's a separate contract between the schools and the conferences and a TV provider, which is ESPN. So what are they going to do? They're going to put whoever draws the most eyeballs. And guess what? When you're on ABC every week, or if you're on Fox every week, or if you're on, ESPN every week, that's going to happen. So again, we can go back and forth. This is a Big 12 show. We got lots of football to talk about, but I just by and large, when it comes to whether we should cut off and create a new subdivision. I'm in favor of that. There are some schools that are that are borderline, that are on the outside looking in. But I think that at this point we do that. I just don't think the Big Ten and Big Ten and SEC will do that, because one, for tax purposes, and two, it puts that they already have such a big advantage in bargaining power over the whole NCAA that it won't happen unless it costs too much to keep the other schools involved.
Yeah. No, I mean, well said, honestly. Just, yeah. Yeah, we'll just go and move on here. Because I'm with you, but I think it just leads to a larger discussion here going forward. So
that's an off-season discussion we can have.
Yeah, it's much more. Yeah, it's much more news that came out during the season that would make great off-season content. Yeah, but there were a couple of surprising things from this past weekend here, good and bad. Want to ask you first here. We'll go bad then good. I think that's probably a better way to work it here. And so, what was the worst thing that happened in the Big 12 this week, and that kind of surprised you?
The worst thing that happened that surprised me. Interestingly enough, I don't think this is the worst thing that happened, but the thing that surprised me that was bad for one of the teams was Utah. Obviously, their defense didn't have enough. Cam Rising is out indefinitely, according to Utah. I think Whittingham's finally tired of him. Consequently enough, I hope he feels better, but he's already filed for his medical red shirt, so he can have an 8th year and be eligible for an 8th year. At some point, you hang up your helmet, bro, and just walk away, right? But Utah going down, really surprised me, because I thought that they had the depth to win these types of games. In spite of who was at quarterback. And that was my supposition last week. So we'll see what happens with Utah, because at the end of the day, they were supposed to be, they had a lot of hype preseason and were supposed to be a bell cow for us heading into the playoff hunt. And they're not there.
Yeah, they really are not making they're not making the Oklahoma State loss look any better at all. I mean, they're 1-2 in conference. The only one they have against anyone is Oklahoma State. They've lost their 2 games after that. I was looking here of Cam Rising's basically I was looking at here over who else was in his class of recruits here, because he flipped from the LSU Spirit article we have is from his flipping commitments here. And from OU over. But yeah, he was with Casey Thompson, if y'all remember him. And he flew from Texas to OU at one point, but then of course never played OU. So anyways, he was gonna back up senior Baker Mayfield with Kyler Murray and etc. So anyways, it's just kind of funny to me that he's been playing college football so long that he was going to be backing up Baker Mayfield. That's how long he's been college football. But with that being said here, the worst thing from this weekend here, Big 12 wise, that surprised me the most.
Let me put it to you this way. Yeah. 2017, he committed to Texas. April 22nd of 2017. His first season was 2018. We are now in 2024, and he could be eligible for 2025.
Yikes.
Yeah. So I understand. I understand why he's doing it, though. I mean, if he can still get some team to pay NIL money for him for a year, he's not going to the NFL at this point, especially with the injuries. So that's the era we live in. And I actually saw something interesting, just to kind of pivot off of that for a brief second, on Instagram. It was another show. I can't remember the name of it. Otherwise, I'd shout them out. But they were talking about the fact that the problem with NIL and with the transfer portal as it's set up today is that the coaching staffs and the ADs have lost all leverage with the players. And you see that on the field, right? If you sit a player, they leave. So if someone's having a bad day, you can't. We saw that with Xavier Townsend at UCF. You saw that at a bunch of different schools. And you even have players now that are being told at games by coaches, hey, you did a great job after the game, even in a loss. We may have some openings coming up That's literally happening right now. Um, those players, some of them are not, it's been reported that some of them are not making the bigger hits or shying away from hits because they know they're going to transfer somewhere else next year. That's not what college football is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about playing for your school. And yeah, I know people are getting paid. Okay, fine. But that's until that transfer piece of it is fixed. I mean, even the NFL, if you've got a free agent signing, you've got them for a period of time with an option, right? You don't have that here. So how can you as a coach and by extension hold an AD, hold a coach, um, accountable when you've got players that are doing that every year? They're 1-year rentals.
Yeah, no, they really are. Yeah, I mean, we've got Bear Alexander is the latest guy here from USC to kind of be talking about that a little bit more here. Played at Georgia in 2022, was playing for USC 2023 and 2024, but then basically posted on his Instagram that he's gone, and a couple other teammates were like, at least one was saying, "Hey, see you, man." So he's going to redshirt the season and plans to transfer from USC after just 3 games. So yeah, he
I
wasn't
mean,
getting
this
a
is
ton of snaps here on the defensive line there for USC, and he's already like, "Hey, I'm gone." So I'm only trying to back up your point here on that. That it's just 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Yeah, I mean
it's
these
not
guys
even
just
1
aren't
year at
staying in
this point.
programs. Yeah, I mean these guys
It's
aren't
4
just not staying
months
in
or
programs to help.
4
Yeah,
games.
they're just not helping their draft stock at all. I mean, if this guy's an IMG Academy guy, so IMG Academy, Georgia, USC, you got to figure he's thinking NFL draft potential no matter what. And a lot of other Georgia players who were playing with him have to be like, dude, you just put in the effort at Georgia, man. You'll see the field a little bit more, and then all of a sudden you'll get drafted probably by the Eagles. Yeah, it'd be funny because the Eagles are kind of the mini, Georgia Bulldogs there. But that's the thing. I mean, it's just wild to me how that all these guys have flexibility. For example, Alan Bowman already played more than 4 games this season, clearly. He's played 6. I mean, we've already. But what if he'd only played 3? There's the UNLV guy we talked about a couple podcast episodes ago, right? Who I've already forgotten his name because he's like just one of many now. It's not even like, oh, it's that guy holding out for NIL money. It's like, oh, yeah, well, that was probably already happened all over the place. And
How
that's
do
just,
you
this one
how
just
do you
became more
plan a
public.
roster? How do you do spring camp? How do you do fall camp when your guys, you could potentially have them for 3 games and that's it and they sit out? I mean, I don't know how you do that. And it's becoming a problem. It's almost like, we've got the transfer portal window, right? So you're recruiting there. You're recruiting your guys, the class that you've signed, right? And you've got the early window now. Then you've got the December window, and now you've got another window in the middle of the season. It's ridiculous. They've got to get control of this. And I don't care what team in the NCAA we're talking about here. We're definitely Big 12 teams. It's happening for us. It's happening other places. From a depth perspective, right? If you have that piece, he isn't performing well. He sits out for a little bit, decides to shut it down for NIL money, and now you've lost your depth. And in a P4 conference, you can't do that. You have to have at least 2 deep. How do you develop a 2 or 3 deep unless you're Alabama or Georgia or something like that? If you're under threat of that, I don't understand what we're doing. I don't understand what we're doing with college football right now. And I'm going to get off my soapbox and stop ranting. This is a Big 12 show, but I think, the stuff that's been coming out the last few weeks, it's important to acknowledge because it's ruining the sport for everyone. So, Sankey, you want to be the NCAA leader and be the leader for everyone? Do something about this because you're ruining the sport for everyone.
Yeah. 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 I I gotta say, there are so many different guys that are transferring or could transfer or would transfer or whatever. And the best explanations I've heard of this and the best detailed analysis of finding out exactly what all this about is if you listen to Pablo Torre Finds Out, that's the name of his podcast. Basically he did a whole deal about college College football is just going to have GMs here. College basketball probably will have GMs as well too. They may have
We
their
already
own
have them at
interesting.
UCF.
Yeah, but they're just going to be much more like blatantly obvious and in full name. They might be at UCF, might be full
No,
name.
we
I do
have
not know
we
that
have
already off the top of my head
yeah,
here. So all I'm trying to get at is that every single university will have the GMs.
yeah,
I mean, it's just
yeah.
I know there are. I guess UCF. I don't know. Big 12 school already had one, but there will be every single school will have one. Here before too long because it'll just be we'll have the Memphis, we'll have the UAB, we'll have the USA, South Alabama. Everyone will have one because it'll just be mandatory at that point to help manage the rosters and IL evaluations because at some point here, this has to change where it's no longer, well, hey, if you can't pay me more, then I'm gone. Well, legally, or at least what's supposed to happen is you're not supposed to be able to talk to the coach about that. Now it has happened. It just is happening, period. It
Let
just
me
is
put it
going
to you
on. We
this
know
way.
that. We
It's
know that.
been it's been so off the rails. I live in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, which is right next to Destin, Florida. And for those of you that follow college media days, there are certain conferences that have their media days at certain places, right? And there's two of them that have their conferences here. So 3 years ago, I met with and he's still a current head football coach at an NCAA Division I school. I met him at a cigar bar and I was having a smoke. He was on the phone and he was talking football. I was like, oh, what's going on? So, of course, me being me and a college football guy, I struck up a conversation. Well, while he was sitting there, he had his assistant or whoever or somebody calling him saying, hey, I got so and so's mom on the phone in the middle of media days, right? I have so and so's mom on the phone. This isn't going to work. As far as how much we're going to pay them. Can you talk to the mom? Right. And so he picks up the phone. He's going back and forth with the mom, and it was constant for 2 hours, one right after the other. And it's basically negotiation the whole time. And it's like, we can't run college football this way. We just can't.
Yeah.
Turn all the players pro. I don't care. But if that's the case, we've got to have contracts that make sense for the teams too, because they spend a lot of money recruiting these players, re-recruiting these players, recruiting the transfer portal. And you can't have consistency in a roster or even build a roster or develop guys if they're under threat of leaving after playing for 3 games. Hey, I did well for the first 3 games. Now my drafts or my NIL stock has gone up. Let me see what I can get out there on the market. You just can't do it. I'm sorry. So it's got to change. That's the transfer portal. If you're going to keep NIL, modify the transfer portal rules.
And and also just the redshirt deal's got to go. I mean, you got to fix that deal too. We cannot just get everyone being able to play 3 games into a season, play their non-conference schedule for most of the teams in the country, not the SEC though, because their non-conference is mixed throughout their schedule like some crybabies. But with all that being said here, I just am not a fan of, hey, you can play 3 games. Like 3 games is enough time for a UNLV team to be like, hey, we're undefeated. We're 3-0 for the first time since 1962, and then have every single soundbite be about it. So with that being said here, the worst thing that I saw, though, from this weekend here to kind of bring it all back around here was Houston. Houston got a win in the Big 12 before Oklahoma State. That was the worst thing. And they beat TCU of all teams here. A team that, yeah, not having a great season whatsoever, but a team that also has a Big 12 win this year too. So just
So let me just
not great here. Not bringing my Oklahoma State fandom to a ton of
So you're
hopes and
mad
praise.
Oklahoma State sucks worse than Houston is what you're saying. Because remember at the beginning of the season, we were saying, yes, I'm going to rank Houston number 32 out of the
Yeah.
16
We
teams.
were like, Houston's like the bottom of the floor. And now they've gotten a Big 12 win before Oklahoma State has. So now they still have one less win on the season than Oklahoma State does. But
Well, I mean,
but
we're midway
yeah.
midway through the season now, right? Like we said, we were going to wait to see. Teams typically are what they are going to be the rest of the season by game 6, right? And everybody's at game 6 at this point.
And that's
So
another reason why I gotta say, not looking great here to be an Oklahoma State fan, or a Baylor fan, or a KU fan. With all that being said, here all 0-3 in
KU's done.
conference.
Stick a fork in them.
Well, no, I'm not, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, cannot be fun. Cannot be a good deal to be
So
a
Lance
KU fan.
Leopold's
They're one
wife
and
cannot.
five.
Lance Leopold's wife can no longer go on Facebook and complain about the fans. That license has gone away. So Lance Leopold, you need to make sure your wife stays away from Facebook and Twitter and all other social media because the fans aren't going to show for a team like that.
Kansas has beaten one team this season.
Yeah.
If you know what the name is off the top of your head here, props to you because it's a Lindenwood.
Yeah.
They've been one team 48-3. Props to them. But Jalen Daniels did throw an interception in that game, and he only threw it 15 times. So, Lindenwood, with all being said here, what was the best thing that you saw in the Big 12 this weekend that surprised you?
I would say the best thing for a team that happened was probably Iowa State's win because I think it solidified Iowa State as I know BYU 6-0. I know that they're averaging a fair amount of points based on strength of schedule and what I've seen out of the teams that each one has played. I still contend that Iowa State should be number one. And we play them this weekend, so that's not going to be fun. But as far as Iowa State is concerned, they are consistently showing that they can beat teams at a high level, play solid defense and offense, and I think they've just solidified themselves as, I think, the team to watch to win the Big 12 championship this year. So I think hats off for Iowa State. They're doing it week in and week out, and I think they've proven what they're made of.
Yeah, no, I agree there. They're definitely proving something here for sure. They beat a West Virginia team at West Virginia, of course, past weekend that I thought was a decent West Virginia team because they walked in Stillwater and beat us 38-14. But I'm recalculating Oklahoma State kind of perspective here all the time. What also sucks that you guys play BYU next weekend. Not
Yeah.
this week, but next. So you go back to back with that. Which team do you feel like you guys specifically have a better chance of beating? Because we fortunately do not have to face Iowa State here this season, which is I can't believe I'm just saying that. That's so fortunate for us here.
Between Iowa State and BYU?
Yeah, who do you think you can beat? Yeah, who do you think UCF can beat?
I think we have the better shot at Iowa State simply because I think BYU has a slightly better defense. They are putting. I was looking at the stats at this past weekend in our own podcast that just went live, and we were talking about BYU. I think they're somewhere around 36, 37 points per game, but their strength of schedule and who they played, what those teams are looking like now are not as strong. But Iowa State, offensively, they're pretty balanced. But I think by and large, we can shut them down. And we've got the ability from a running game perspective. And, UCF's game, I don't know if you watched it or not. You probably didn't. But we started EJ Colson, who's a true freshman, who is 17 years old, reclassified, 4-star guy with out of Georgia, had multiple championships, state championships, and MVPs for the state of Georgia. Played him for the first series or so. He looked fairly good, but he looked like a freshman. And then we played a Ja'Cory Brown, who was the Miami transfer. And he has been either with the 2s or 3s. Played him. He looked pretty solid and executed the offense much better than KJ. So I think with the defense that we're facing, I think Iowa State, we have a better chance.
I like it. All right. Well, it all sounds good. It all makes a ton of sense here. Interesting though. I mean, either way, because I think, Iowa State's 9th in the country, BYU is 13th. So the voters very much
Both
chalk
of
it up
them
here because they're not college football rankings yet. We don't have those exactly playoff rankings yet. We haven't gotten that first thing released. I don't think it comes out until November. But with that being said, here, yeah, just interesting overall.
Yeah, I think both of those teams are going to be tough. I'm always going to pick UCF, but neither one of those teams. Iowa State. We're going away for Iowa State. So that's a tough environment to play. They win a lot of games at home, and they've got a good team this year. So I don't know. BYU's at home, so you give the slight edge to BYU, but to the BYU game. But I think for some reason we start to put it together offensively because you saw flashes of it this last game. They were running the offense, outgained Cincinnati, the number 2 offense in the Big 12, shut them down offensively. So if we get the offense together and it keeps clicking like it was, we had 2 turnovers that kind of killed us. If that didn't happen, then we would have won this game. So I think we're starting to gain momentum for Iowa State, and I think they'll, with new leadership kind of being solidified, I think they'll be a spark.
All right. Well, with that being said here, my biggest surprise here from this past weekend in the good terms here was kind of the opposite of what you said. The bad thing of Utah losing is Arizona State making a name for themselves. We got Sam Leavitt, which he's going to leave it there on the sideline for the rest of the season, looks like. But he's playing, he at least played decently enough to help Arizona State beat Utah. Great at home. Kenny Dillingham is one of the best post game press conferences or post game interviews. Yeah, just on the field there. I've seen a little bit because he's just so amped up. He went there, etc., and just is one of the more. I mean, he's one of the younger coaches, but he's also one of the more youthful coaches as well, too, just with his energy and enthusiasm. And I got to say, I watched that whole game front to back, and I was just surprised how good Scadaboo is. To be honest, I had not watched
Been
Arizona State
talking
play
about
a
him all
full game
season.
so far. Yeah, but I not watched the whole game. I just watched basically highlights of him, and he looked really good. But he I mean, to say he carried the team is putting it lightly there. I mean, he has,
He usually carries the
again.
defense while he's running too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Yeah, because with that being said, here you don't see a lot of Big 12 teams that have more rushing yards and passing yards. But Arizona State, this is their identity. It's got
Yeah.
to be and also Utah knew this coming in. So this is one of the things that just kind of it really frustrated me about the Oklahoma State Utah game is we knew Utah was going to run the ball. They had a freshman quarterback coming in. Cam Rising's not playing, and even if we thought Cam Rising was playing, still injured his a finger on his throwing hand. Probably still running it a little bit more than he would normally be, anyways. And we still can stop the run. Utah ran into the same issue here with Arizona State. They knew Scadaboo was going to be the guy. In fact, Sam Leavitt there, he has 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 18 total throws in a college football game here. Looking like
Mhm.
Michigan kind of numbers there from J.J. McCarthy last year with that few amount of throws and passing attempts. Granted, his was a little bit less than this, but still under 20 in a Big 12 game. I'd, I'd be shocked to hear that 5 years ago, and pretty shocked right now too. The other thing is that you know kind of recapping the game a little bit here, Utah gets out and they just cannot get the ball in the end zone. They didn't even get in the red zone for their first 2 possessions going down the field, but their kicker still makes a 48-yarder and then a 40-yarder. And then Arizona State just comes back and scores 2 touchdowns in a row, and basically just leaves it there and just keeps scoring while Utah tries to keep catching up. Utah did go up at one point there right in the third quarter, but then Arizona State ran away with it. Just kind of show this wasn't like a fluky thing in my mind. It's what I'm trying to really talk more about here. I think Arizona State, when they come to Stillwater for Oklahoma State's homecoming, I'm not looking forward to that one. I got to say, all of a sudden here on November 2nd, because they have a bye week before that game too, and the rest of the season here for Arizona State, and you guys all set to play Arizona State here, but the rest of the season for Arizona State is basically they're the toughest matchup here coming down the stretch. They do have to play K State and BYU, but it's those 2, and besides that, it's Cincy, OSU, UCF, or, our schools in Arizona. So they do have kind of a gauntlet here with K-State and BYU to, back to back, close
I've
to
got
the
a
season, but
I've
still.
got a trivia question for you.
All right, all right.
When was the last time that Iowa State had a 10-win season?
Oh, I think I saw it the other day. It's like 73 earlier,
Never.
later. Never. Oh,
They
all right.
they
Well,
have
yeah, that's
never had
a
a
question there.
10-win season. Never had a 10-win season. So if you're looking at schedules, you look at Iowa State's schedule the rest of the way, and the fact that they are 6-0 right now, they should have a 10-win season for the first time in their history. Which,
That's
sorry, Iowa
wild.
State fans, that you've never had a 10-win season, but congratulations, you may finally get your 10-win season this year.
Yeah, I mean that is just that's crazy to me. Um, I did not know that, but yeah, Iowa State, they're not. I mean, we know they're not bad. They're
They're
very
great.
good here, but this
They're a good
BYU
team
team,
this year.
yeah, this BYU team here, Oklahoma State coming off a bye is 46-17 with Mike Gundy as the head coach. Um, and that is 16-9 and 15-5 in the past. Excuse me, that's 16-9 in the past 15 seasons. Um, so I I'm real worried about the Oklahoma State game here, but I just want to give a little bit of glimmer of hope here coming into this weekend there for Oklahoma State fans. And I'm really just happy for all of the Arizona State fans. In the end of the day, it's really really cool to see a coach that's that into their team win. The way that they've won. Then the other thing I want to talk to you about here is just the other undefeated team in the Big 12, and honestly undefeated team in the whole nation here is Brigham Young University, BYU. And they play Oklahoma State, of course, this Friday. Then they go to UCF to play you guys, and they also play Utah, KU, Arizona State, and Houston. So, hey, I think their toughest matchup here through the rest of the season is going to be Arizona State at Arizona State on November 23rd. Yeah, I'm overlooking our team, our teams here and Utah, but I don't know why I wouldn't at this point. And the other two teams they play is KU and Houston, which good lord. So I think BYU has a chance to go undefeated here. The whole season, honestly. I think they've got a real good path to it, especially if they can basically if they can, beat Arizona State here on November 23rd.
Yeah, I think for me, BYU is interesting. If you look at who they've played this season, I'm still not convinced um, because of the defenses that they played that their offense is going to be able to hold up for the rest of the season. It'll be interesting to see. We had our BYU podcaster on earlier this season when we were doing the previews, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not expecting much out of this BYU team." Surprisingly enough, here's BYU 6-0 right now. I think Iowa State, to use Gus's of the three undefeated teams, and I don't mean this as a slight to anyone, right? Iowa State right now, in my mind, is a team that should be 6-0 and could go a long way in this conference. Texas Tech, I'm still not convinced. They're undefeated in the Big 12. I'm not convinced of them. I feel like they're more like paper tigers, like I told you guys Arizona was all year. BYU is a solid team because they've got a solid defense. So I think BYU and Iowa State are going to go far because they have defenses, have a good defense, right? Kansas State is going to be interesting to see because they're just always solid and because they're consistent and not turnover prone, they typically will win their games because of that. Arizona State has a middling defense, but has a has a pretty good offense with Scadaboo, and they've got a couple of receivers that they can get involved to stretch the field. If you have a good running game and you have a good defense, you can go a long way in college football. So that's kind of my assessment of the top. When you were talking about West Virginia earlier, um, Garrett Green, good quarterback, surprised me this past weekend that they didn't make it a closer game or even won at home this week. So they're a little snake bit right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if West Virginia made a little bit of a run the rest of the season. Arizona, I don't like Arizona. Colorado, they've been winning. I feel like they're getting all the karma bounces of the football back from the ones that they lost last year. But they've got really two important weapons that I don't understand how anyone, including UCF, has not been able to shut them down because you know where the ball is going. So they should be playing more like Arizona. I think they're going to trail off as the season proceeds. And then the rest of us, nobody really cares about because, other than us playing other teams and those individual fan bases, because we're not going to be factors in the championship game. That being said, I do think from a UCF perspective, in a couple of games, you might be seeing a different UCF football team because the KJ-led offense was atrocious. It was atrocious. We were waiting for him to turn the corner, showed it in the second half of TCU, but then was atrocious. Let Ja'Cory Brown get get his feet under him for a couple of games, and I think towards the end of the season you may see some more wins on the board. But we've gone from Big 12 championship hopes to making sure that we continue our bowl streak. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, we're in the exact same boat here at Oklahoma State. Of course, we're hoping for a bowl game. We're hoping for maybe one more win. I mean, I see possible 4 wins on Oklahoma State's schedule here, but I mean, hopefully at least 3. And that season just go 6-6, make it to a bowl game. With all that being said here, I do want to talk a little bit more about Colorado and at least the Heisman odds here for Travis Hunter, because I think he's the guy with the best shot to win the Heisman coming out of the Big 12. His odds now are also falling a little bit because he did get injured and dinged up in the past weekend's game and just didn't play. Um, I mean, didn't play. After a shoulder injury against K State, supposedly he's going to play this weekend here. As well, but it's just kind of speculation at this point. And they're playing at Arizona. Their bye week, it doesn't come for a little bit here. There are 2 more games for Colorado. I do see a way that Travis Hunter could win the Heisman here, but it's going to be Colorado. I think almost winning out. Maybe they could drop one more game, but they don't play anyone tough the rest of the season on their schedule. I mean, I'm not counting Tech as one of the tough teams because Tech's basically skated by everyone, and you just recapped Tech there real well. And then the other teams to note here on their schedule that literally are they only have the only other teams they're facing in the Big 12 schedule besides Tech um, have 1 win in the Big 12 so far, or no wins in the Big 12 so far. Speaking about Oklahoma State here, so yeah, and KU, so yeah, it's looking like Colorado and Shedeur could kind of do it. I thought coming into the season, Noah Fifito had a chance. I no longer think that whatsoever with Arizona and their downfall.
None.
Um, and the other one I
That,
was hoping for was Ollie Gordon, just selfishly, but there's absolutely 0% chance of that, almost a negative percent chance. And I don't see any other one else besides Travis Hunter in the Big 12. Maybe Scatterboo if he really breaks it off here, but I don't even see that at
well,
this point.
I think the problem is for the players that you're mentioning is, the thing about the Heisman is that you have to have a team that is winning. Otherwise, you kind of get lost in the shuffle. So, someone like RJ Harvey, who is, you mentioned Ollie Gordon, is outperforming Ollie Gordon, is averaging 4.7 yards per carry still. Is a solid player, has racked up a lot of yards. He's not going to get a look. So really, you have to, when you're talking about Heisman, I think Travis Hunter is a little bit special because of his dad. And I do think he has the best chance of potentially getting a Heisman depending on what he does the rest of the season. But if they stumble, the Big 12, you almost have to have a darn near perfect team. And a lot of noise around you to even be considered. I don't see, other than Travis Hunter, I don't see anybody that would even be voted into the top 3 of the Heisman this year.
Yeah, I mean Ashton Gentry looks like Dylan Gabriel now is getting a lot of nods at least at it.
But
And maybe Cam.
he's not a Big 12 quarterback.
Well, but neither
Oh,
is
okay.
Ashton Genty. I mean, yeah, it was the
No,
first
he's
name.
not, but
No,
yeah.
I mean, I'm naming the other guys who are possible up for consideration here. Cam Ward is also getting a little bit of a nod here. He just has the odds listed at least here on ESPN as well. And and out of all 4 of those guys, Travis Hunter, I think, is the guy who could make more of the cliche Heisman moment here on national television and really play it up more than Dylan Gabriel's good, but I mean, and Oregon will play a lot of teams that are tough, but the other 2 guys here
Dylan
in Gentry
Gabriel
and
will
Ward are not in Power 5 conference and not in the Power 4. I mean, like, Miami is, but Miami play anyone? I mean, I think Colorado actually has a shot here of playing on some big time television games, and Hunter's just proven to be a guy who can create incredible plays as well too if he can stay healthy.
As an individual, 100%, right? So he obviously he has one other teammate that
Yeah,
has contributed to his success, but as far as an individual contributor to the team and the numbers and the performances that he's put up in his position, he's definitely the guy when it comes to that coming out of the Big 12. Dylan Gabriel will never win the Heisman just because he's not enough of a difference maker and he's lost too many games over time for his team. So unless Oregon goes on a run and gets to the Big 12 or to the playoff championship game, I don't see him as a contender for that. Great passing quarterback. He just doesn't have the attitude, nor does he have, his journey. I mean, everybody forgets he was a UCF quarterback for seasons. He's the reason that Mackenzie Milton went to Florida State to give way to him at UCF. But I think he's bounced around too much and he hasn't won enough big games. He's only won one big game his entire career, and that was against the Ohio State this past weekend.
yeah, and the other thing is he didn't play great against Boise State. Oregon played Boise State earlier this season, and that was one of the games that Oregon just did not look up to par. Yeah, they got a win on national television, but if they have a rematch today, Josh Pate had this here. If they had a rematch today, Ohio State and Oregon on a neutral field, Ohio State would still be favored by 2.5 points. So it's not. Yes, Dylan Gabriel won the game and had a touchdown rushing, but it wasn't. I mean, it just. I'm only agreeing with you here. So with that being said, here. Also want to get into previewing the games here for this weekend here, for the Big 12 here. Um, I gotta say, I'm really excited just to see Oklahoma State play football again. Bye weeks always just kind of mess me up here overall, even if it is a loss. It'll still be at least fun to see us play and see who's at quarterback here. And that is the first Big 12 game on the slate here for this week. And I'm just double checking. But Oklahoma State BYU, I'll ask you here. You're at least less biased than I am Oklahoma State wise. Who do you think? How much do you think BYU wins by? I was going to ask you who do you think wins, but I'm going to stop.
I'm gonna say I don't know. I haven't looked at the odds for them, but I'm gonna say they're playing at BYU in Provo, right?
At BYU, line is currently BYU by 9.5. Over under
I
is
was gonna
52.5.
I was gonna
All from
say
ESPN bet. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say 12 to 14 would be my guess on the line, but they're playing at home. They've got a really solid defense. Oklahoma's offense is struggling. Their defense hasn't been great. We had a listener last week mention that the fact that the traditionally Oklahoma State's defense has not been good, and I don't know if you want to shout him out real quick or her out real quick, but that's 100% true. This season has not proven to be any different. So BYU's defense is stifling, and they force turnovers. So this could be a long day. I was going to say 12 to 14 points.
Yeah, Phil OKC had that here of having a bad defense has been par for the course for nearly every Gundy team. The difference has been the offense has been able to score a lot of points real fast. This season, the defense and offense sucks at the same time. Yeah, yeah, both are not good. Both are not good here. And then with that being said here, yeah, I predicted earlier this week on my own on the CGA tour when I had Trevor from Saturday's Warrior BYU podcast, and I predicted Oklahoma State loss here, and I almost never predict Oklahoma State losing. But at this point, um, maybe I can double jinx this back into the win column or something, and then pull off an upset here with a different quarterback under center. Next game here is weirdly Arizona State at Cincinnati. And I say weirdly here because it's at Cincinnati and Cincinnati's favored by 5. And I know they just beat you guys, but I kind of view that as a fluky where you guys were starting a freshman quarterback. I didn't view Cincinnati as being that good. And I think Arizona State's kind of good. They only got one loss on the season. What are you seeing here from this? Cincinnati's favored by 5 again.
So Cincinnati sneakily, I don't think people have realized this. They had their transfer quarterback who's playing for them. He's a third-year guy, I think. Their offense was number 2 in the Big 12 going into our game last week. So they've had up to this point, they've had a pretty good offense. I don't see them winning against Arizona State. I think Arizona State's defense is a little bit better than what Cincinnati's is. And I also didn't like what I saw out of Cincinnati's quarterback with regard to the turnovers. He's been pretty good all season with no turnovers, but quarterbacks can get in their heads. After a game like that, that confidence goes away. So it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts. Based on how they performed against us, I think Arizona State can play ball control with them. Arizona State can give them a heavy dose of Scattaboo. Cincinnati on number 2 on Cincinnati. I can't remember his name for some reason. Very good defensive lineman. They don't run a lot of A gap. Arizona State doesn't run a lot of A gap. He's a defensive tackle, number 2 C something. Anyway, they're going to run off tackle, and because they're going to run off tackle, I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Arizona State. So I'm going to take Arizona State away at Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm also taking Arizona State in that one. I just kind of don't. Yeah, how could I not after Arizona State's win here and Dillingham being that fired up? So, yeah, I got to take him here at the end of the day. And kind of Arizona State team here. I'm trying to look up here real quickly here the defensive end they're talking about here, or a defensive guy.
Not a defensive end, defensive tackle.
Yep. Dante Corleone. Yep.
That's him.
Yep. He's listed.
I don't know why I couldn't remember Corleone because
he is, for reference, listed as a defensive end on ESPN. Who knows why? But yeah, he's 320 pounds, 6'1", so he's definitely playing tackle. I gotta think there. So, with that being said, but yeah, the other game here that's coming up here. I'm taking Arizona State. The other game here that is, I'd say the Big 12 every so often just has a real just kind of dumpster fire-ish type of deal here going on, and the dumpster fire game of the week here, presented by Waste Management, is Houston at KU. Do you want to guess who's favored? I don't know if you ever listen to the Guest Lines podcast from Bill Simmons. Here, I'm dropping all the podcast names today and shouting them all out for no reason. But Houston at KU, you want to guess who's favored here? It's being played at Arrowhead Stadium as well, which is a fun note.
I'm guessing it's Houston, but it really should be Kansas.
Kansas favored by 5. It just is tough to believe that a winless Kansas team who's only beating Lindenwood, that's mentioned earlier, is favored by 5.
Houston averaged 10 points a game going into that OSU against who did they play? TCU, right? And TCU's defense is not very good, and most of Houston's points came off of turnovers. So I could totally see that.
I guess the way Houston's played OU and held them to 16 points. Maybe OU's offense is just that bad, but scored 12 on OU. I think OU's defense is pretty good, no matter what. And then they, they beat Rice. It's not necessarily something to write home about, but they went to TCU in their place and beat them. And that I was quick to bring up the relevancy of how quick that is. So I would personally, I'm picking Houston to win that one. What about you?
I'm going to say that Kansas lost at Illinois 17-23. They lost to a good UNLV team when they had a good quarterback, 23-20. They lost at Morgantown 28-32, so close game there. They lost at home to TCU 27-38, and they lost at Arizona State 31-35. I'm picking Kansas. I don't think Houston is good at all. They've only averaged 10 points per game coming in prior to that last game. I think Kansas wins the game.
All right. Well, next one here is Colorado at Arizona. Arizona's favored by 3. I'm not going to try to quiz you the whole time here on guess the lines, but yeah, Arizona's favored by 3. So basically, they're getting the home field favorite. There is it. I'm gonna take Colorado, and I don't feel great saying it, but Travis Hunter's playing, then I want to take Colorado here.
I'm with you on that one. They're basically two of the same teams offensively. You've got one connection offensively, right? Quarterback to receiver on both teams. But I give the edge because of Travis Hunter being able to take out Arizona's phenom wide receiver and be able to blanket him. Arizona really doesn't have any other offensive weapons, so I will take Colorado in this game.
It'll be fun is if Arizona just says, "Hey, Fafita, you know what? You play DB on Travis Hunter because you know what Travis Hunter's definitely be. You know, I would think he's at least going to
I mean, I don't know how
DB
that
him up
kid
a
plays
couple
that
of times.
many snaps. That's crazy.
140 plus snaps in a game, and that's the first time I can remember being injured for a half is insane. Without it being like a concussion or something, just I think that
Per game.
yeah,
Per game.
just
That's
having the
nuts.
stamina alone, let alone also the amount of work you're doing during the week for tape. You're just grinding tape and footage
Well,
and knowing how all
think
this
about
takes place
think
because
about
if
it
you don't, you're gonna get burned so badly.
think about it this way. Travis Hunter basically has played a season's worth of snaps already.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, he's never off the field. Um, well, for both taking CU there, the Buffaloes. Next one here is the Big 12's butt game. Baylor, BU versus Texas Tech, TT. It's at
But
Texas Tech here. Um, oh yeah, I mean this is the one that everyone will be tuned in to for about 20 seconds when they show the scoreboard. Take a photo of it and be like, "I watched the butt game." Put that on my Instagram because that's funny. But you know, it's I mean it's in Lubbock. Texas favored
as
by
long
six
as
and a
they
half.
don't
This
do
will be tricky.
TTB, if they don't do TTBY or BU, then you'll be okay.
Oh, no,
It
no, this they Big 12's got it down here because they know that the second team mentioned is the home team. So they're on another stratosphere here. They're Galileo here thinking about this one. Or maybe Thomas Edison. But yeah, they've got the butt written out here. Tickets are $65 to go to the butt game. I in Lubbock, I would not think so. Just 'cause Baylor's not that good, honestly. I can't believe Texas Tech's almost sold out that game. With that being said, the line's 55.5. I mean, I'm taking Tech. I mean, that's yeah. I feel dumb about it too, just because I feel like that's too easy to say, and that kind of makes me feel weird. Like, oh, maybe Baylor will stand up there and be doing something. But I mean, I'm picking Tech. Baylor doesn't have a win in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, let me throw some weird stuff at you here with Baylor. Baylor's a weird team this year, right? So their first game against Tarleton in Waco, win 45-3. At Utah, lost 12-23. That was when they were playing a lot better. One at home versus Air Force, 31-3. One lost at Colorado, 31-38 in overtime. Played BYU in Waco, lost 28-34. Played at Iowa State and lost 21-43. So outside of that 21-43 loss, they've played all really, really close games.
And
Texas
the
Tech has,
Colorado game, they should have won. Everyone
yeah,
knows the story on that one. It's bizarre.
100%. So, if to me, the closest analog is that Colorado game because it's offense versus offense. And because Texas Tech does not have a good defense, they're one of the worst in the Big 12. So I can actually see Baylor making this a game if their offense plays up to their potential and how they've played the rest of the season. I think they could make this a game, but I'm still going to go. They're playing. Let's see. They're playing in Lubbock. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna take. I'm gonna give Lubbock the only because it's Lubbock and the tossing tortillas or tortilla tech or Texas Tech or whatever you want to call them. I'm gonna take them at home because they're at home, but I think it's a lot closer game, and I think Baylor could surprise some people and win this game.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, good to know. And with all that being said, I'm still taking Tech, but basically, yeah, because they're at home. Um, Now I've got two 6:30 p.m. matchups. We'll just knock this one out first. Your UCF, you guys, the 9-1s at number 9, Iowa State. Iowa State's favored by 14 points. I'm taking Iowa State. I'm not taking Oklahoma State. So you know what I mean. I'm not taking Oklahoma State to be biased. taking BYU, and I'm also going to take Iowa State here. And
All
we're going
right.
to defeat.
So the non-biased football fan says to me, I don't think it's a 14-point game, but I do think Iowa State wins this game. As long as we stop the turnovers, it won't be a 14-point game. We've been turnover prone. We had 2 turnovers by one player, both fumbles within 6 minutes. So, needless to say, that guy was benched. They went back to him just to kind of give him the confidence boost back, and he fumbled again. Um, so, I'm as a unbiased fan, I'm taking Iowa State. As a bias fan, and fan stands for fanatic, I'm taking UCF, but Iowa State wins this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, sadly enough here. Then K-State at West Virginia. This one I think is the best Big 12 matchup here we've got this weekend. At least where I think it'll be the most fun to watch. It's not the smallest favorite. It's tied for the smallest favorite here, or team favored by the most amount of points. Better way to say it. But it's K-State favored by 3, and they're going to West Virginia. I I just really hope this is a good game, to be honest, because I think West Virginia can put on some points here. I think Garrett Green can be kind of Avery Johnson light. Is probably the best way to say it here, because there's a reason why West Virginia has done as good as they have this year so far. But you got a couple weeks ago when Oklahoma State was playing West Virginia, Ryan Rush from the Ryan Rush show had Ryan on, and Ryan was just not confident on West Virginia, and they just took it to Oklahoma State here, which makes me think that maybe West Virginia can play a little bit, and they also, I I think the defense is all right. I think Iowa State just might be good. Um, so
Well, I
yeah, I'm taking K
yeah,
State here, but barely taking K State.
I'm going to take West Virginia at home. I think they're due for a win. K State has played a lot of close games. Their defense really hasn't done much until the fourth quarter. I have watched Garrett Green play, and I think he could win games for them as long as West Virginia's wide receivers can hold on to the ball. So I'm going to take West Virginia at home just because I'm not completely sold on K State and specifically their defense. But if Avery Johnson continues his maturation as a quarterback, I could very easily see Kansas State running away with this one. But West Virginia does have the firepower to score quickly. So it'll be interesting. I agree with you. I think this is the best game of the week.
Yeah, Avery Johnson playing with him in College Football 25 is it brings back Michael Vick memories of playing Madden. That's the most relevant guy that I could talk about off the top of my head here. That immediately gives everyone the image, but it's not the same, of course. Michael Vick is ungodly overpowered in those Madden games. But with that being said, you're having a running quarterback, and what Avery Johnson can do there, if he can also hit guys down the field, is crazy. So yeah, K State, and then the most expensive game in the Big 12 to go get a ticket to this weekend is the last game, and it's Utah. It's a 9:30 kick Eastern. TCU at Utah, which just does not scream a $72 ticket to me off the top of my head here. But then again, Utah fans are kind of crazy. So does
It's all
Utah
the
bounce
ski
back on this
shots,
one?
man. They're getting excited
Ah,
about
all
the
the
ski
ski
shots.
shots.
That's
And
what
then they're
that is.
drowning. They're drowning the cougar tails because they just hate the cougar tails that much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or dunking them
Um,
in, whatever. I don't know.
well, I will say this. Next year I will be at the BYU game because we play them away, and I will be at the Utah game because we play them away. And I've got a client in Salt Lake City, so I can write it off. So I will definitely be there. Um, So, to me, listen, I think Utah rights the ship. I think they win this game at TCU. TCU can be good, but their offense is only good for a half of football. Their quarterback has been more turnover prone as of late, and I think Utah's defense wins this game for them at home.
TCU's one Big 12 win this season so far is against KU, and I cannot talk more off anyone's ear about how much I just do not trust KU. I will say, if I had one preseason prediction that just absolutely rang true, it was, why are we in love with KU? Because it's just rang so true the whole season. And with that being said, yeah, TCU, their claim to fame here right now is that oh yeah, we beat Stanford. Okay, cool. UCF, you
Stanford's
guys
not
just
a
came
good
back.
team.
No, no, they're not. I mean, they got killed by SMU in city rival almost there. I mean, granted, very different parts of DFW, but I'm trying to play on words here. And then yeah, they beat KU 38-27. So you still let KU score 27 points on you? Yeah, I'm not picking you against Utah, especially at Utah. That one's easy here. So with that being said, Roger, any other things we want to just kind of wrap up the Big 12 Huddle podcast with here? As we
Um,
wrap.
For me, it'll be interesting to see who is there at the end. I'm waiting for Texas Tech to trip up. I don't think they have the defense to continue their run within the Big 12. They will trip up at some point. Iowa State's a really good team. BYU's got a really good defense. We'll see how their offense goes the rest of the way. Arizona State's going to be a tough out this year, and I really think those four are the four that we're watching to see who's going to go to the Big 12 championship game. Right now, my money's on Iowa State and maybe BYU. It'd be interesting to see how that works out. The rest of us are all in the sophomore slumps that most everybody experiences moving up to the P4. Until we figure out our quarterback situation, we're kind of stuck. But I think we may have found the answer in Ja'Cory Brown. We'll see how he does the rest of the way, but he'll have some time with the ones, and I think we may surprise some people towards the end of the season. So we'll see what happens as the defense gets better and the offense catches up.
Yeah, Oklahoma State wise here, we've got a new quarterback under center here in Garrett Rangel starting this Friday. I've had multiple people who I've had on my podcast before confirm that, who are very reliable sources. So that should give a good indication of who I'm talking about, who guys who cover the team exclusively and are in the press conferences weekly are 100% certain that Garrett Rangel starting for Oklahoma State. And Gunny's just trying to play a little cautiously so that at least BYU's got to think, well, maybe it's a different quarterback, but it's really Rangel. And I'm hopefully backup quarterback can bring different energy, and at least we can see some life out of the Oklahoma State offense. I'm not looking. I do not think we'll win this game in Provo Friday night. Yeah, they have a short week, but it's not really. I mean, it's not like they're playing on a Wednesday after Saturday, so they're college kids. They recover. It's not in their home. I don't need to keep going about this. I will say here, besides that game here, the K-State West Virginia game I think will be really interesting this weekend. I'm just going to throw K-State in the mix here as well for that Big 12 championship talk, and I would replace them with Texas Tech because I'm with you on Tech. I do not trust them. But K-State plays Iowa State for the classic Big 12 matchup of Farmageddon on November 30th. And that right there, that is the biggest game the Big 12 has coming up here this season. It may not be the biggest overall by the time it happens, but for right now, it's 17 versus 9. Great ranked matchup here, and I would love to see that one here because the rest of Iowa State's games here, up until that, they basically play Texas. They play Texas Tech, not this weekend, but next, and yeah. So, with all that being said here, please follow, if you're not already, at Night Bengal and at the United Ones podcast, Rogers podcast here for UCF, with the College Huddle and the College Huddle Network. Please follow myself here at the CGA Tour. That is the Calvin Glen Alexander Tour, but the Oklahoma State podcast for the Big 12 Huddle. And thank you so much to everyone who is subscribing, sharing, listening, all that type of stuff. Please like, share, subscribe the podcast, and yeah, leave a comment down below of who your Big 12 team is if you made it this far. Roger,
Go
what else
Knights.
do you got to say here? Yeah, there. And go Pokes real quick before I end it out too, of course.
Oh, no.